Okay, so welcome. This is the latest in our interview series with Tumble Tots here. We've got Charlotte, who's the technical director of Tumble Tots, and David, is your title still managing director?
It is, yeah. Hi. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, welcome, guys, and thanks for agreeing to be interviewed. It's very great to have probably the oldest provider in the sector. Not to denigrate you or anything, David.
Yeah.
Not you personally, the brand.
We started in 1979. I've been there, well, sort of indirectly since about 1991, because I came along with a business that Tumble Tots bought, and they've never got rid of me since. So I got involved directly with Tumble Tots in 1995 because they'd gone through a period of consolidation at that point in the early 90s, because they'd grown quite rapidly, and they was wanting to push on with franchise recruitment again. So I moved over from the company that I was working for that was owned by Tumble Tots into the sales role with Tumble Tots. So that's how I became involved. But I mean, the history goes back to 1979,
yeah,
with a guy called Bill Cosgrave, who started the whole Tumble Tots program way back. Well, it actually started. He was an ex physical training coach in the army, and he had also been a coach for the British Olympic gymnastics team in Mexico in '68. So he'd got a lot of experience, and then he started the Tumble Tots program because he recognised that even in the late 70s that children were not getting the same opportunities to develop their particularly physical skills and motor skills to the degree they had in the previous generations, because people were getting a bit more concerned about safety, and children weren't being allowed to just go off and play in the fields and parks quite as easily. Yeah. And then you had the advent of video coming in. Remember that video? Crikey. And so Bill devised a program that was designed to help children with their physical development, so balance, agility, climbing, coordination, but at the same time it helps with their social developments. That was way back in the late 70s, and he launched it in 1979. And then I'm not sure of the exact early history because I wasn't with the company in 1979, but I do know that they had quite a rapid growth when they were acquired by a Singaporean-based company in 1984, yeah. Called the MPH Group, and they provided funds for the growth of Tumble Tots in the UK, and it grew pretty rapidly throughout the 80s then. And then, like I said, we had that period of consolidation in the early 90s where they were taking stock of where they were. And then they started to push forward again in the mid 90s. So, and that's where I got involved.
Yeah, and think how many hundreds of thousands of kids have probably been through the program over that time?
I think millions, don't we, Dave? Like we know, because we reached 1 million quite a few years ago now. So we know that we've seen a lot of children, and even now when you're in classes or you do any kind of event, you see almost second generation, potentially third generation saying, oh, I went to Tumble Tots, I was a Tumble Tot, I took my child, now we're taking my grandchild. So and I think we're very lucky in that sense that as a brand, we have that longevity and people recognise us as that brand. Immediately they see the Tumble Tots logo, they think of their yellow t-shirt, and actually they're then compelled to bring their children to our brand, which is, it's crazy to think about. And like I said, you see grandparents bring in their grandchildren, and it's remarkable, I think, that we've gone this long, sort of 40 years on, and we're still just as strong, really.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I often, for people who haven't heard of the sector, I can, use your name because most people will have heard of Tumble Tots.
That's great to hear.
In some capacity. So it's great. I mean, I haven't been there as long as David, obviously.
No. A little bit younger than me. Yeah.
But I've sort of now over 10 years with Tumble Tots, and even in my 10 years of Tumble Tots, I've seen the programme and our brand just develop even further in the last sort of 10 years and become quite quite a strong brand really, and very recognisable, which is great. When I first came to Tumble Tots, I was fresh out of university, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into at that point. And then sort of 10 years on, here we still are. And I couldn't imagine not working at Tumble Tots because of the opportunities that I've seen that children actually get, and how important early years activity is. And without that activity in the early years, then actually some of what then develops at school, it can be hindered a little bit. And I never thought of that. I thought, well, actually school kick-starts everything, but it's before they go to school, even from babies, that they need to be involved in children's activities. Obviously, like Tumble Tots, children's activities as a whole, as a sector, is really important, and sadly at the moment overlooked a little bit, maybe because we don't drive a massive path for the economy. However, I think what we as a sector give children is essential, because without what we all do as a sector, come a generation, come at the time that they go to school, they are going to be missing their physical skills, social skills, cognitive skills that they acquire through coming to activities like Tumble Tots.
Yeah, and you know, you're right in what you say in terms of, you know, levels of government and so on and so forth don't really realise this sector, but you know, there's 40,000 businesses in this sector. A combined turnover of 25 billion. You know, millions and millions of kids come every week to programs like yours. It's also a really important point to make. You know, as I said, there's 40,000 providers now. Effectively, the whole industry is only 10, 15 years old. You know, we were one of the, you know, obviously business, you know, the business I used to run, we were one of the first providers around, but you'd already been going 20 years. So, you know, you probably forged a path that so many other people have followed, and so many people probably should be grateful for, you know, originally starting. You know, it's easy to open a kids' activities business now, isn't it? It's easy to, you know, people understand taking their kids down to a program, and you pay for this sort of stuff. Probably the early days for you were very challenging in that.
They would have been, because really, other than taking your child to a play group, wasn't really much else around when Tumble Tots first started in 1979. I mean, the amazing thing is how long it's been going, because I'm just thinking, I've seen so many changes over the years. I mean, I saw the founder go in 1999, and the current owner, Richard Lim, he was the new owner to me. Well, that was 20 years ago, back in the year 2000. You know, so it's amazing, you know, the longevity, like Charlotte mentioned, that we've got. And
even Dave, I think with some of our franchisees, only recently we had a franchisee who'd been with the business, 25 years, 30 years, and she's this. She'd taken it almost from its infancy, even Tumble Tots in its infancy. She'd worked very closely with Bill, and she believed in it. I think if you know, she cut herself, she'd be red and yellow inside. And I think that shows sort of how people do value our brand. Even our franchisees, they stick with our brand because they absolutely love what we do, don't they, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we've had, I mean, there's been a bit of change in recent years because a lot of people have got to retirement ages sold on, you know. I mean, if you go back 5 years ago, we probably had maybe 15, 20 people that had been with the business for 25 years plus. But over the last 5 years, a lot of them have sold and moved on because they're gonna, you know, want to change.
What would they, and you know, obviously yourself, David, what would you say have been the major changes over that period? You know, you've been in it for 30 years.
Technology obviously has been one of the biggest things that's changed in the time. But I mean, because we were taking, you know, cash, and some people still do, I guess, in credit card, in checks, in cash boxes, whereas, you know, obviously now a lot of it's all done online. It's all paid for online. So obviously, and then obviously communications. We used to have far more regular meetings with our franchisees than is necessary now, because email came along, and now we've got Zoom as well. So I'd say technology has changed, but I mean, it's amazing how many things have changed in that time, because when I was first involved, we were selling audio tapes and videotapes of action songs, you know, and it's gone through CDs and DVDs, and now it's all going online. So even our business, even though, you know, our core business is without doubt is in the classes, you know, it's what we do in the classes. That's what we're known for. But even the technology has impacted a little bit on that. But essentially, to be fair, in terms of the programme, that's not changed much.
No, and I think what Bill designed 40 years ago is, and we've gone through a few reviews recently and think, oh, is there anything that we're missing here? And even when we've brought experts in to look at our classes, or physical activity experts in the sector, to look at our classes, there isn't anything that they can pick up on that we're not doing. Yeah. And I think that's a credit to what Bill designed. But what we know now, far, far more than we've ever known, is the benefits of physical activity in children, and actually how those benefits and getting children moving, it's not just going to sort of benefit them because they can move better, but it really helps sort of their cognitive development, their social skills. Whereas I think way back when, that wasn't necessarily a massive thing, but there's been far more research now go into it, and we know far more now of even something like getting a baby to crawl will help their handwriting. Yeah. Now, we didn't know that back in 1979, and again, that's through research and us developing our sort of behind the scenes stuff and material, that we've been actually able to convey these messages to our customers as well. And that's incredible. Whenever I tell any of the staff that I train or parents, oh, did you know that actually putting your baby on their tummy, helping them crawl a little bit, will help them when they go to school? And you don't put those two and two together very often. And it's things like that that we know far more now than we ever did.
Yeah, sometimes as providers, I don't think we give ourselves enough credit as kind of the social, emotional, physical and mental health benefits you do, not just for the children, but obviously the parents or the grandparents that are bringing them themselves. And, you know, there's loads of anecdotal evidence and loads of evidence, like you said, that a program like yours has huge benefits and all those sort of things.
Yeah, and the thing is, you know, we mentioned about things being done online, I think before we started actually, didn't we? But, you know, with Tumble Tots, yeah, there's certain things we can get away with online, but really, to really see the true benefits of what we do, you need to go along and because
I really miss the classes. Like, I really miss. I'm very lucky doing what I do. I travel up and down the country. I see all of our franchisees. I see lots and lots of different children, different parents. And I actually just miss watching the children and the parents or grandparents or carers just play with their children, enjoy what they do, and actually hear and see the benefits of doing that. And I think that's one big thing, that even though Tumble Tots hasn't stopped at the moment, my job is very different now, and not physically seeing those children is really hard.
Yeah. You've got plenty of them joining in with you on the
oh yes, got a little fan base.
Yeah, tune in every day and you're saying hi to them every day, haven't you? It's great, actually. Really good.
But you're right, it's a huge adaptation, isn't it, that obviously people had to go through, and kind of coming back to that, obviously, what was happening internally at the time when the crisis started to hit? Obviously, it came like a tidal wave to most people.
In a way, really.
Yeah, we were doing really well. Like, our classes, our franchisees had the best numbers that they've had in a very, very long time, which we were, and everybody was so excited. And then it sort of, everything started trickling, and you know, there was a little bit of worry, but actually up until sort of a few days before we made the decision to postpone classes, our franchisees were still seeing relatively same numbers going in, obviously practicing hand washing procedures a lot more frequently. Our franchisees were cleaning their equipment after every single session, so their practices altered a little bit, but actually the people coming along hadn't really altered. But we as a company, as a brand, took the decision to shut down even before schools shut down. There was a lot of during that week there was a lot of media attention, and it just went crazy. And David and Richard, who David mentioned earlier, we were on the phone on a Monday night at sort of 10 o'clock at night, weren't we, Dave? Just going out of our heads, like, what are we going to do? And this is all I've ever known, Tumble Tots, but in the last 10 years, that was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to be a part of. And I think, Dave, that may be you as well.
Was the hardest decision.
It was agonising, because on one hand, we think as a franchisor, and then we have to think about our franchisees and what they're sort of saying to us, their worries. And so when we made that decision on that Monday, it was a Monday evening, wasn't it? On that Monday night, from then on in, we postponed classes. And, you know, we didn't want to say that we shut down classes, because we are coming back. We are. So we postponed classes, and it was a hard decision, but within 24 hours, we were online.
Yeah. Which, you know, Charlotte and the team had recognised that we needed to get online as quickly as possible. Obviously, a lot of other companies recognised that, but we were in there straight away. And I
think it was Wednesday, wasn't it? We shut classes sort of Monday night, and then Wednesday at 10 o'clock, we started Tumble Tots at home, and Lucy, marketing manager, and I worked very closely together to try and build sort of almost like a sub-brand very, very quickly, because we knew how important it was to keep the Tumble Tots brand and presence alive, and not to sort of discount anybody else, but we wanted to do it before anybody else. We wanted to be there, like you said, Mark. We're one of the oldest going. We wanted to be that person, and actually, you know, from if I watch that first session back to where we are now, we've learned a lot during that time. What it has meant is that actually,
that kind of leads me into the next question. Obviously, it's quite a steep learning curve, because you had about 24 hours to figure out how to be a virtual rather than so what's kind of been your learning? What was that first experience like, and then what's been your learning?
Well, we had an idea that we're going to sort of do a 20-minute session. We knew what we could do in terms of sort of our action songs, our rhymes, so we knew roughly the content, and we knew who we were pitching to. Because of our social media following, it was instant that we'll stream on Facebook. We'll just stream it, and then we'll consider if we need to move to different options further down the line. So I quickly had a ton of branding sent to my house, some coordination equipment, and that's where it started, really. I think I'm quite fortunate that previously to Tumble Tots, I'd been a holiday rep.
Okay.
So actually doing that kind of thing just comes naturally anyway, and I've worked in Tumble Tot classes, and I thrive. I get a real buzz working in classes, but that kind of thing I'm not adverse to. So that is a really important thing as well, because it is quite daunting just speaking to a phone and just hoping for the best, really. And I think that the one thing I learned very quickly was just to relax, because if you're having fun doing what you're doing, the people watching you are going to have fun as well. And, you know, we watched, it was maybe sort of the first week we were watching them, and you could see each day I was getting more relaxed and more into it. And then it was just looking at how else can we brand it up. So we created some more branding. So actually there's a really lovely environment. So every morning, I changed my living room around, and we become Tumble Tots at home, because that's what we had to do. And yeah, it's just knowing what our audience like and running with it, really. And I think for us, we know our audience really like that back and forth. So that's why we've chosen to stay on Facebook as well and live stream every day to get that back and forth. And so that we have our fan group that watch all the time, but then others can dip in and out very easily.
Yeah. I mean, it's been fantastic from a marketing point of view in terms of brand awareness as well. I mean, we've doubled our followers in 3 months.
Yeah.
No, it's been and the videos, some of the earlier videos were getting phenomenal viewing.
Like 70,000 views. Yeah. And we average now every day about sort of between 8 to 12,000. So we're lucky in that sense. And I think straight away, Mark, we made the really tough decision not to charge.
Yeah.
Only because, and we understand why other franchisors need to charge, but we wanted to keep our sort of rapport with our customers and offer them something that they know our brand, they know, and we know that they love our brand because of sort of our familiarity.
Yeah.
And it was a tough decision again, Dave, wasn't it? Because
Yeah.
we're a business and we need money like everybody else.
Not necessarily right or wrong in these sort of things. You just
No, there isn't, and you have to make the decisions that's right for your company and what you want out of it. But what we did start at the start of June was a pay what you think contribution, so that the sessions are still free, all of our content free, because not only with the sessions, we put out a lot of content as well, so things to do at home, activity suggestions, things like that. So what we are asking now is people to pay what they think, and actually we've had some really lovely messages and contributions to the classes. And so yeah, I wouldn't say that's going to save Tumble Tots by any stretch, but it's bringing in something.
And I think that you know, importantly, when we do go back, I think that we'll see the benefits of this when we go back. I mean, we've had fantastic. Our franchisees have been brilliant. They've supported. We've all got. We've come together. We've all supported each other. Their parents, some of the feedback we've been getting, their parents have been really supportive of them as well. And I think the fact that we've carried on doing this and we've spread awareness, even greater awareness, I think we will reap the rewards when we go back. And
even our franchisees have started, haven't they, Dave? They've a lot of them have sort of communicated with us that they've had new bookings put on their waiting list of new parents, which actually is really promising to us. So our franchisees are really looking forward to getting back, and I think it's almost given them a bit of comfort knowing that there is something to go back to. People want some kind of normality in their life. It's just how we're going to look when we go back.
Yeah, you kind of beat me to the punch on that question in terms
all
of.
right.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You know, they're not here to listen to me ask the questions. Yeah, so that was just my next question in terms of any other benefits you think there'll be from this increased brand awareness and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing, and that's what that's been the focus really for us, because we thought it was important that we make sure people can access us still, so that they can see a little bit of what we do, because Charlotte does a great job every morning, absolutely fantastic job, but it's not full Tumble Tots.
No, it's not, and it could never be Tumble Tots. We don't have our equipment. I have a bag of coordination equipment, and today when I wanted to show how to climb properly, I had to use some cardboard boxes. So it's not exactly what we're aiming for here, but it's giving something.
It's great.
And if they can see, oh, actually, that's online, what is it going to be like in person? That's what we're aiming for. That actually when they go, they get lots of our lovely bright equipment, and actually they're even more like, wow, this is going to be great. So.
So, I mean, if anybody, I think all the sessions have been recorded and they're all available. We're coming up for the 100th one.
Yeah, so on the 8th of July, it'll be our 100th session.
Yeah.
And we are going to run all the way until classes resume.
So if anybody wants to catch up,
You've got a bit of work.
you can go and take
part.
There's more hours on there than there is on Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I think it probably is, actually.
Yeah, so because probably some people who watch this probably aren't aware of the other stuff that you've done over the years. You know, you've had TV adverts, you've got a program on, is it on Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon Prime. Yeah. So yeah, we've come a long way, haven't we, Dave? And
you've got the magazine as well.
A brand, like you said, we've got 11 animated cartoons on Amazon Prime. So that's just bringing our Tumble Tots characters to life. As you said, we have our TV advertising. We try and go to as sort of as many events as we possibly can. And yeah, we've got a strong brand, but as David said, the heart of our business is our classes, and all of our sort of sub brands, if you like, they make Tumble Tots, but our classes are what we all love and our parents love as well. So at the moment, there's so many ways to access Tumble Tots, and there will continue to be that when classes resume.
Yeah. I mean, the animation, like Charlotte said, it does bring our characters to life, and the purpose behind that was to help again with brand awareness, which we hope will, you know, filter down into more people coming into the classes as well. But even so, even if the children are watching the animation, it's been designed so there's 3 action songs and rhymes in each episode. Yeah. So the idea is they can join in with it as well at home. So, you know, as well as watching Charlotte, if they go onto Amazon Prime, they can also join in with the action as well with our characters.
Because that is the thing, you know, and that's the curse of technology, is that, you know, children aren't moving as much. So like Dave said, our animation is interactive, and, you know, the sessions that we've done online, there's not one chance for children to sit down. They are go, go, go. Just because it's, you know, I think you have to accept technology and go, right, how can we keep children active whilst they're watching? And we've seen loads of videos. We have so many videos and pictures sent to us of little ones watching us online, but joining in. And that's what we want. None of the pictures we get sent are the children sitting down, which is great.
Yeah. So we kind of mentioned, you know, what happened at the start of the crisis. Now we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. You know, what provisions are you putting in place? When do you think you'll get back?
Well, we've worked hard, haven't we, David? Yeah. We've I think at the very start we sort of got through the first sort of Tumble Tots at home, and then we sort of sat down and going, right, what are we going to do? So we devised a strategy based on what we knew then. So we're talking about April, May time. And what we actually did, because we are a franchisor, but our franchisees mean a lot to us. So we actually consulted all of our franchisees on our strategy, because there's no point in David or I sitting there saying this is what's going to happen without actually having some feedback from franchisees. So it went through a few sort of reviews, and we've I think the main thing we've done, we've adapted, we've reviewed, and we're going to need to adapt again and review to make sure we can come back safely when we can. And you know, we've had to look at class numbers, because we can take 24 children and 24 adults and 4 members of staff. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So we've had to think, right, how can we see the same volume of people in a day but not in the same class? And how can that happen whereby it's not going to incur any more fees for the franchisees, i.e. hall hire? So, you know, the way it's looking at the moment, our classes might be a little bit shorter in short term, with an approach to then getting back to our 45-minute sessions in time, which then means we can have reduced class numbers but duplicate classes. So instead of having sort of 24 children in one class, we split them into 2. Yeah. What we didn't have to take into consideration previously was parents. We work on a staff to child ratio of 1 to 6. Yeah. Now we have to think about, actually, it's not just a child, it's a child and a parent. So it's actually another body, which impacts us a lot. I mean, we are also lucky in the sense we operate in quite big halls anyway. Yeah. And our equipment, I've never needed to measure equipment quite like we've done so far, is that actually some of our equipment is 2 meters long. So actually it's quite useful in terms of thinking, right, actually this is what we could do, and we will keep a social distance. Obviously things are changing at an incredible speed at the moment. But I think it will be absolutely manageable to implement social distancing measures because of what we're doing.
Yeah, and the announcement today of 1 meter obviously helps everybody out a lot more, doesn't it? A lot. It's going to help so many businesses, that is.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's done, isn't it? So because a lot of businesses wouldn't be able to open. You know, that's the thing that a lot of people were kind of considering. If it is 2 meters, they almost can't fit enough people in to pay for the hall hire and
yeah, exactly.
No. And that was one of the worries from what the franchisees, wasn't it? That if they had to operate with less than 12 children, how is it feasible? Whereas now now this announcement's come out, we'll have another little review on numbers, because even with 12 children, that's another 12 adults, so that's 24, 2 of staff, so that's 26 people in one room. So it's weighing up how we can manage that safely, really.
Yeah.
And are you doing anything to get the customers back, or do you think they're chomping at the bit
I think they're chomping. I know I have a lot of discussions with a lot of different franchisees who run very different businesses, and the main consensus is that their parents want to almost go back. And I've said this for a little while now, haven't I, Dave? There's almost sort of three categories of parents. Parents who just want to get back, let's go. There's the more sort of, actually, let's just see what measures they've put in place, because we want to go back, but we want to do it safely. And there's another category, completely understandably, who are very cautious and wary, who perhaps won't go back to a children's activity, and that's absolutely fine. But what we're hoping is that we can capture those two first categories, because we know that they want to come back, because they miss Tumble Tots. Those parents who've come because they've already bought into our brand, they love our brand, and because I think this is really important, they have a wonderful rapport with our local franchisees. They want to get back. And again, I think that's given some assurance to our franchisees, at least, that actually there's something to go back to. So let's get back when we can.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be, there will, I'm sure, as Charlotte's saying, there'll be lots of people wanting to go back, because there will be, like Charlotte's described, the groups of people there will be people that just want to get back out and do things with the children again. And obviously, once we know when we are going back, then we will do some promotional activity as well. So it will be a combination of, there's already people waiting in the wings, mixed with making sure that people know we're back and introducing new people to us as well. Which again comes back to the importance of what Charlotte and Lucy, our marketing manager, have been doing with all the online activity. Because if we'd have shut ourselves away for the last 3 months, it may have been, I'm sure it would have been far harder. Whereas now we've got that impetus and that confidence that, we'll mail everybody and say, right, whoopie-doo, we're going back now. And
more enthusiasm, Dave. Whoopie-doo. That's why I do the sessions, Mark.
But yes, so it will, we're back, we're coming back, and I think there'll be a lot of people that will be ready to go, ready and raring to go, and then there'll be new people that will be introduced to us as happens every year, all the while.
What I said to David, obviously, once I was watching Boris this afternoon, and once I sort of finished watching, I rang David straight away, and I said, yes, it's not great, because obviously we can't go back in July. But actually, what this could give our parents is confidence, because if they're willing, or if they're going to go on holiday, if they're going to go camping, if they're going to go to, say a theme park, then hopefully, if they've got the confidence to do that over the summer holidays, come September, they're going to have an even more confidence to go, actually, yeah, we'll go back to Tumble Tots, because we've done all of that, and we know it's safe, and actually we can see the measures they're putting in. So it might actually work in our favour by the time we can go back, that actually they've already started to carry on with their normal lives as they were doing pre-lockdown.
Yeah. And do you think, do you think your classes will look much different apart from?
No, the way they've been designed, if those people who were going to Tumble Tots, they won't really see that much of a massive difference in terms of what we're able to offer. Obviously, going from 45 minutes to 30 minutes, we need to condense a little bit. But what we will make very clear is that we will constantly be reviewing that. So when we can get back up to 45 minutes with more children, that's what we will do. And I think that's the key for everybody. You're going to have to adapt and review, because if you don't, you're not going to survive. Whereas if you can, you can see, and customers can see what you're doing, they can see that you're on the right path, and you're actually really invested in getting your business back on track. And I think as long as our equipment's there and our staff are looking happy and smiley and it's a lovely atmosphere, I think everybody will be racing to get through the doors, for sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you say about the parents stuff. I think that mirrors with the CA survey we've done of parents all around the country and different providers and so on and so forth. A huge percentage of parents said they're ready to come back as soon as sessions open again. Obviously, the caveat being, you know, the social distancing and the infection control measures. But you know, it mirrors. You know, there's a kind of latent demand building up, and you know, from my own clients as well. You know, a few of them have got back because their activity suits outdoors and can get it down to that 5-to-1 ratio. You know, one got 600. He got about 1,000 customers and 660 signed back up straight away. Within like the first day or so, and the others will come back. He can't cope with them all actually because he hasn't got the space and the capacity.
That's a great sign, isn't it? That's a real good sign of positivity there, that is.
Yeah, and there's been a bit of, you know, speaking to him, there's been a bit of learning in those first couple of weeks in terms of thought it would look like this, but actually, you know, it looks slightly different. And, you know, there's a bit of learning on terms of, you know, making it work for all parties because it's slightly different than previously.
What age group is that?
No, it's school age, so mostly school age.
So no parental involvement, of course, then in that.
No, apart from watching and little things like that. So it's for example, that's at a five-a-side centre. So the parents usually watch outside the courts.
Yeah.
It has to kind of create, you know, get the parents to stand a bit back a bit from the fence and get the kids not to go to the edge of the court because it's kind of natural. You know, social distancing isn't a natural thing for us to do, is it?
No, not at all.
You have to. You find yourself near someone and you're like, oh, I shouldn't be near you, you know.
Or get a funny look of somebody if you do get a bit close.
Yeah, it's not a natural thing to just stay 2 meters away from everyone the whole time, is it? Even kind of 2 meters and, you know, so on and so forth. So I think there'll be lots of, you know, there'll be a steep learning curve again when we get back that actually, you know, we need to do this or we need to do that, or you know, you can do as much.
And that's the thing, isn't it, Dave? We were saying that Dave was like, do you think you'll be able to have a break in September? And I was like, absolutely not a chance, because even though classes are back, we know full well, like you've just identified, Mark, our franchisees are going to need a lot of support, and we're going to have to look at what we're doing. Is this working? What else do we need to do? Do we need to change anything? And that you have to consider as well. It's not just a case, right, we're back. It's right, we're back. Is it working or isn't it? What do we need to do? And that, I feel like a moral obligation to all of our franchisees, that I want to be there, not physically obviously, to help them as much as possible, because there's no, again, it goes back to, there's no use for us to create something, to say, here you go guys, this is what you need to do, and for me to go off and do something else and not to support them. And I think we've seen a real sort of united front, haven't we, Dave? And this has brought us as a company and a brand so much closer together with our franchisees. It's incredible. Never have I felt such a good working relationship with us and our franchisees. And it's not an us and them. We're very much all in this together, even to the extent where every week we try and get as many franchisees together on Zoom, have a notorious quiz, but actually last Thursday it went on for ages, just chatting away. And so those kind of things that we've done, and you know, we've made it very clear, and I've had some very sort of long conversation with franchisees, not necessarily about their business, just about, actually, I'm having a really bad day, Charlotte. So to have those conversations and to try and work through it has brought us closest together. So if anything, this has been a great benefit, because we are a massive team again, aren't we, Dave?
Yeah, no, it's been, you know, I can't say it's something that we would want to happen again, but we're certainly you know, making the most of a very, very difficult situation, you know. But you know, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm sure in time we will all get back to normal, you know, and the market will always be there, you know, so there's always new children coming along all the while. There's always going to be parents looking.
It will be in 2021, that's for sure.
Yeah, there is going to be a boom, isn't there? I'm sure. So, you know, I just think, you know, if we can all just get through this period and marshal our way through, you know, going back and maybe having to operate with slight differences, in time it will come back, and the market is always going to be there, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for people that aren't kind of involved in the CA or don't really realise or don't know a kind of global picture, they probably don't realise that, you know, the UK is probably the world leader in children's activities, probably the most established market. You know, we're one of the, you know, other countries kind of follow us now because, you know, you were probably one of the main forerunners in those sort of things. The market is so established. You know, I was trying to, when I spoke to this, spoke to government the other day, I probably mentioned it to you on the group or whatever. I was speaking to an MP about the Children's Activities Association and the sector and so on and so forth. I said there's probably not a child in the UK who hasn't been through a kids' activities provider, because they either catch you at preschool level like you guys, or they catch them in nursery, or the school sports providers and after schools providers. That there probably isn't, you know, and that's regardless of demographic, it's regardless of geography. There probably isn't many children in the UK, if any, that don't go through a kids' activities provider. In that, you know, it's a big responsibility there, and they touch every child's life, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But bringing it back to the CA, obviously, you know, I've known you a fair while, David. I know Richard a little bit. We've spoken to Charlotte as part of the CA and stuff. You know, you're one of the founding members of the CA, weren't you? What originally made you want to join? When I presume it was Sam that gave you a call.
Yeah. Look, when it first started, there was a gap, wasn't there? And there was nothing to hold children's activities to a certain standard. Obviously, the bigger brands out there, like ourselves, we have a very strong standard to which we run to. But actually, as a sector as a whole, there wasn't that. And I think that, like you said, Mark, there's a lot. The market is saturated, and you can't really turn a corner without there being a children's activity going on. So I think that when it started, there was a huge gap in the market that needed to be filled, but needed to be filled by sort of those people in the know and that knew about the sector. And so as a founding member, we obviously know a lot about the sector and worked with other like-minded professionals as well in it. And actually it is a good sort of association to be a part of and to look to, not only for smaller activities, but also for companies like Tumble Tots, just to go, yeah, we're doing everything that we need to be doing, or actually go, oh, we kind of let the ball sit there, let's pick it back up and sort ourselves out. So it's a great association for parents to look to as well, to go, yes, they are a reputable children's activity, because
I think
parents just don't know.
Yeah, it was lacking an organisation to sort of make sure standards were being adhered to, because you've got that with the franchising. You know, when I've started with Tumble Tots, I mean, the British Franchise Association, I can't remember exactly when it started, but that was probably not. It was probably only just around the time Tumble Tots started. Tumble Tots would have been one of the very original franchises. So again, there was lots of organisations springing up that perhaps weren't that reputable, and it needed a body to sort of take control of it, and that's really where the CAA is, you know, stepping in really in a similar vein for children's activities.
Yeah. For those that don't know it, it's a not-for-profit organisation run by volunteers. You know, by providers for providers to try and protect parents and all those sort of things. You know, what would you say to, you know, any organisation, whether large or small, about joining the CA? Have you found it beneficial, useful, helpful?
I think it's very useful for smaller, if you're thinking about starting a children's activity, it's a really useful organisation to be a part of, because of the experience that is in the CAA, not only with those of you who do volunteer your time, but for in general, all of the brands that are part of the CAA have a wealth of experience. So that alone is worth it, as well as all of the sort of checkpoints you go through as part of the CAA. So that actually, I think if I was running a children's activity, I would know, yes, I need that sorting before I'm going to be reputable. It's things like your insurance and things like that. So it's definitely something to be a part of. And, you know, yes, we are all competitors, but you can always learn something from each other. Even us big brands, we can always learn something or sort of thrash out different ideas, which means as a sector, we can really push forward. And that's what's needed at the moment. We need a lot of pushing. I know we'd started before lockdown of banging on people's doors and listening to us as a sector and to realise actually how crucial we are as a sector. And that needs to continue. Like I said earlier, if it doesn't, you know, children that come to our activities gain so much. So we should be recognised further than what we all are, I think.
Yeah, and Dad, David, or?
Not really. I think Charlotte said it all there, really. I mean, like I said, it's sort of a stamp of approval, isn't it? I mean, it is difficult for an older established organisation like us, because we pretty much felt we'd got most things in place anyway. But when we went through the sort of accreditation, it was useful to do it. You know, it made us sort of review what we were doing. So there was certainly no harm in it at all. But as Charlotte said, I think, you know, if you were starting out now, then I think you probably should look to join it, because it does give you some credibility as well.
Yeah, I think some of the biggest benefits are probably hidden ones that you probably don't realise or whatever. It's when you explain it to parents, you know, explain what it does, and they go, well, I can't believe there wasn't one of those before. Anyway, because you know, your franchisees run classes. You know, how many times does a customer actually asked to see insurance, a DBS, safeguarding, qualification? You know, if they do, I've never heard of.
No, it's very, very rare. I mean, that is one, even before the CA, one of our sort of requirements of our franchisees, that they always do display their insurance documents, just as a matter of our best practice, because we're safe in our knowledge of what our insurance offers. But it is really important, and I think those standards will always there's always going to be a new standard as well. Like you said, Mark, we recently reviewed our safeguarding measures, didn't we, Dave? And we're very, very fortunate that for our brand anyway, safeguarding matters don't necessarily arise very often. So it's not something we have to actually address that much, if ever. However, it made us review our practice, didn't it, Dave? And we reviewed our policy and actually what our franchisees should do, almost in the same ilk, because they have a first aid trainer per centre. Perhaps we need to consider that actually at least one member of the team, if not the franchisee, needs to have a form of safeguarding training. Now, you know, that's, like I said, we're very lucky, and safeguarding matters don't very often come up. But it's a matter of best practice, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think as I said, some of the hidden benefits are hidden. One of the main things we're trying to do is, you know, get these 40,000 businesses in the sector to realise that they're not really competing against each other. You know, you might feel that you're competing with a person down the road, whether that be a big provider like yourselves, or whether it be, you know, a big provider competing with a local thing. But the real enemies are the negative influences on kids, aren't they? You know, too much screen time, or doing they shouldn't be doing. So that's the real competition. And you know, it's my firm belief that, you know, individually, even a business your size with, you know, your kind of established brand and so on and so forth, we haven't really got a voice. You know, we're not, government don't hear us. You know, we're not represented. So that's what we're trying to do, is build something bigger the more.
It's interesting because over the years I've tried approaching the government on several occasions actually, and you sort of just come up against a brick wall.
I think that there had been some movement, obviously, and very, very sadly, we've lost Steve Franks now, who actually so much. And you know, it's when we heard the news of Steve, I just couldn't believe it, and he was definitely a force to be reckoned with. And you can see why, if you'd ever met Steve, or even on just one occasion, you could see that the force he had, and that actually the document that he had helped to create was incredible. And I think what we have to try and do now as a sector is almost carry that momentum forward as we possibly can, because he started was incredible. It was.
Yeah.
And have the you know, in terms of that, has anything moved further forward with the CAA's involvement
with the Children First?
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously that's in a bit of a state of flux at the moment, given the shock to water babies and Children First and all those sort of things, and losing a character like Steve is going to leave a huge hole in any organisation. I considered Steve someone I really looked up to and respected.
He was great, absolutely great. Like I just watched him sometimes, and I was like, that's incredible. Like what the passion he had for not only water babies but for the sector was incredible. And it's a massive loss, I think, to water babies.
So we kind of said as a board we're going to want to continue to support the Children First campaign, because it kind of has their objectives are aligned with the same as a CAA. So Paul at Water Babies has kind of said that they're going to continue to support the things that Steve was so passionate about in his honour. I've kind of recommended that we try and have some sort of award in Steve's name, a CAA award, and call it the Steve Franks Memorial Award or something like that in memory of him, because like you said, he was a really good guy, and probably to a certain extent misunderstood by those who didn't really know him. You could, I guess rivals or people that don't know him as well probably didn't probably know the real person, but actually there was a great person inside, wasn't there?
And he had a passion, and that is priceless. To be so passionate about the company you work for, but also as a sector is incredible and actually very commendable. And it was such a shock, a massive shock. I mean, we couldn't believe it, but that's great that actually what he started can continue. Brilliant.
We're hoping to continue to support that in whatever format we can, really, because like I said, it's a good cause, and Steve managed to get through sheer force of will and those sort of things, managed to get some great people involved, didn't he?
He really did. To
support that. So the last question or the last point is just a bit of a hope, inspiration, or motivation for other people out there, whether it's your franchisees listening or whether it's someone else doing a completely different activity, because again, you probably don't realise a lot of organisations might look up to you because you're an established brand and been here a long time. Is there any messages for people out there?
I think what I said earlier on that, really, that it's going to be a difficult time when we go back and just sort of finding our feet and adjusting to the way that we need to operate, but it will come back. It will come back. We will get back to. I know people keep talking about the new normal. I'm sure we'll get back to normality at some stage, and so it's just a case of you just hang on in there. The market will still be there. Business will come good again, and we'll get back to how it was, I'm sure, in the end. But we've just got to see ourselves through the next difficult few months.
And you're absolutely right, Dave. And you have to, I'm very fortunate. Out of David and I would say I'm always half full.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you have to think positively. And yes, it's not, as soon as we go back, it's not going to look exactly the same, but it's going to be there. And we want to open, and we're ready to open. And I think actually, if you can do the planning now and almost get over those hurdles, ask yourselves those questions, get advice, and actually you will be ready. And as long as you're willing to put in a little bit of hard work, you will reap the benefits. And that is what we are convinced of. We haven't stopped working hard. We're going to continue to work hard and constantly look at what we're doing, because that is the only way we're going to survive. And I think what I've realised, it's okay to have a bad day. It really, really is. I don't have very many bad days. I'm very lucky. David might disagree with you on that one. Actually,
Monday.
it's okay to have those, but then you have to go, right, how am I going to go forward? Let's talk to positive people, talk about how it's going to happen, what it's going to look like, because even though the person that you're talking to might not have the exact idea, you can then snowball from that. So you just have to have a really positive outlook and know that we will come back.
And that's not just for Tumble Tots, because you were talking about preparation for, it's there. Why won't it be? Like we're saying, we think there's going to be a baby boom next year. So the market's going to be there and potentially bigger, So, and the thing is, I mean, we had, one of the questions you asked right back at the start was about how were we, how were things just before the lockdown? Well, we were motoring away, and we'd got franchisees lined up to start, and we would have had some of them starting in September. Now, I'm sure they will still start. It's probably going to be next year, at some point next year, but they will start, and we will get back to where we were pre this crisis.
That's great. Yeah, so I think that's a great note to kind of leave it on a positive ending. So we'll say goodbye to everyone who's watching and so on and so forth. And thanks for watching.
Great.
Cheers. Take care.